Sources say it was Keith Urban who instigated the split, but it's Nicole Kidman who officially ended it. The actress filing for divorce.
After 19 years of marriage, Keith Urban finally admits what we all suspected about Nicole Kidman. After 19 years of red carpet smiles, hit duets, and gentle displays of devotion, Keith Urban finally said something that made the world go quiet. For nearly 2 decades, fans believed his marriage to Nicole Kidman was Hollywood's rarest miracle, the proof that fame couldn't destroy love. But when he finally spoke, what he revealed wasn't explosive or scandalous. It was quieter, and somehow even more heartbreaking. He didn't announce it in a press release or cry into a microphone. His words appeared in fragments. A soft comment here, a pause there. The kind of truth that slips through the spaces between sentences. And those silences told the story better than anything he could have said aloud. To understand that truth, we have to start long before the fame, before the gowns and the guitars, back when 2 very different souls were learning what love really costs. Nicole Kidman grew up surrounded by books, ideals, and brilliance. Born in Honolulu to Australian parents, she spent her childhood between political rallies and poetry readings. Her father, Dr. Anthony Kidman, a clinical psychologist and biochemist, filled their home with intellect and empathy. Her mother, Janelle, fought for women's rights and raised her daughters to believe kindness could be a weapon. Nicole was shy, painfully so. She stammered through sentences and often hid behind a curtain of red hair. But acting gave her language. In neighborhood plays, she found confidence, the courage to feel deeply without apology. When she stood beneath stage lights, she wasn't the timid girl anymore. She was anyone she needed to be. By her late teens, she was already a sensation in Australia. Bush Christmas, BMX Bandits, Dead Calm. Each role sharpened her presence until Hollywood noticed. Then came Days of Thunder, and with it, Tom Cruise, the co-star who would shape her 20s and change how the world saw her. The marriage was glamorous, even legendary, but when it ended, Nicole was left adrift in the echo of cameras. "I thought I'd never love again," she admitted years later. Fame had given her everything except the thing she wanted most: safety. Thousands of miles away, another story was unfolding. Keith Urban, born in Whangarei, New Zealand, raised in Queensland, was fighting for a dream of his own. His childhood was filled with country records, dusty stages, and endless highways. He carried a guitar like other boys carried footballs. But behind the talent was turbulence, addiction whispering like a shadow that would follow him for decades. By the time the two met, each had already lived entire lives. She was an Oscar winner searching for peace. He was a musician searching for control. And fate, mischievous as ever, decided to let them collide. It happened in 2005 at the G'day USA Gala in Los Angeles, a celebration of Australian talent under a haze of champagne lights. Nicole arrived elegant and composed. Keith, rugged and humble, offered polite conversation and a shy smile. They spoke for only a few minutes, just for curiosity to take root. Then, nothing. Weeks turned into months. Nicole assumed he wasn't interested. Keith would later confess he was too intimidated to call. But destiny has a habit of waiting for courage. On her 38th birthday before dawn, there was a knock at her door. Keith stood there holding gardenias, her favorite flower, their fragrance heavy with unspoken promise. From that moment, everything changed. They moved fast but felt timeless. Coffee dates turned into long drives. Laughter turned into love. Within a year, in June 2006, they were standing in a candlelit church in Sydney. Friends described the ceremony as ethereal, soft hymns, flickering candles, a bride glowing through tears. When Keith sang to her that night, every note sounded like forever. The world swooned. Magazine covers called them Hollywood's hope. For a moment, it truly looked unbreakable. But paradise rarely arrives without a warning. Just 4 months later, Keith relapsed. The ghosts he'd fought for years resurfaced with cruel precision. For Nicole, newly married and newly in love, the revelation must have felt like betrayal, not of her trust but of fate itself. Still, she didn't run. She gathered their closest friends, called doctors, and staged an intervention that would define their marriage. Keith entered rehab quietly without spectacle. Nicole visited often, always in private, always without makeup or entourage. "I was lucky," Keith told Rolling Stone later. "Lucky she loved me enough to save me." When he returned home months later, sober and humbled, he promised her a new life. And for a time, it worked. They rebuilt small gestures, quiet dinners, handwritten notes, slipped into suit pockets before flight. Nicole once said that when she married Keith, she learned that love was not a feeling but a daily decision. The decision to stay when staying is hard, but love that rescues also exhausts. The strength it takes to hold someone together can leave you empty. Nicole rarely spoke of that exhaustion. She only smiled when asked, her answers graceful but vague. Yet behind the public devotion was a woman learning that even the deepest love can carry loneliness. They escaped to the countryside often, away from cameras, raising horses and growing vegetables. In those moments, Nicole said she finally felt ordinary, something she'd never been allowed to be. But ordinary life is fragile when fame keeps knocking. The years that followed were bright and tender. In 2008, joy returned in the form of a tiny heartbeat. Nicole was radiant, and Keith, humbled by gratitude, called it the sound that fixed everything broken inside me. When Sunday Rose Urban was born, he held her as if the whole world might disappear if he blinked. 2 years later, Faith Margaret arrived, born through a surrogate whose kindness they praised publicly. The family seemed complete. For a while they lived the kind of happiness people write songs about. Keith wrote love letters disguised as lyrics. Nicole whispered her gratitude in interviews, always calling him her miracle. At home they played with their daughters in the garden, built pillow forts, baked cookies badly. It was messy, domestic, real proof that fame hadn't stolen their humanity. But fame never stops knocking. Keith's career demanded tours that spanned continents. Nicole's scripts took her to London, New York, Morocco. They tried to keep their worlds aligned, but the calendars refused to listen. Red-eye flights replaced lazy mornings. FaceTime replaced laughter across the table. They promised that distance was temporary, but temporary has a way of turning into routine. At premieres they still shone, hand in hand, flawless smiles, the camera flash turning them into legends again. Yet when the flash faded, silence followed. Friends noticed that Nicole spoke about her daughters often, but rarely mentioned Keith unprompted. He meanwhile poured his emotions into songs that seemed to ache with longing. Listeners didn't need confirmation. The lyrics said everything. In 2014, tragedy came quietly. Nicole's father, Dr. Anthony Kidman, passed away unexpectedly while visiting Singapore. For a woman who had always found strength in her family, the loss was devastating. Keith dropped everything, his shows, his interviews, and flew to her side. At the funeral he sang Amazing Grace, voice trembling but unwavering. The sound echoed through the church like a prayer. For that moment, he wasn't the country superstar, he was simply a husband trying to hold his wife together. They healed in fragments, clinging to ritual. Nicole said her father once told her, "Always kiss hello and goodbye. You never know which one will be the last." That simple rule became sacred. But time, relentless as ever, kept pulling them in different directions. By 2018, the smiles had become practiced again. They still posted anniversary tributes, heart emojis, sweet captions, but fans began noticing that the warmth in earlier posts was gone. Keith often traveled alone. Nicole attended events solo. Paparazzi photos told a story of their own. Two people standing inches apart, yet miles away. Behind closed doors, friends said they tried everything. Therapy, long breaks, even brief sabbaticals from work. But sometimes love isn't lost. It just transforms into something quieter, less urgent. They adored each other, but the rhythm that once felt like music now sounded like echo. The cracks widened slowly. A missed call here, a postponed visit there, little things that over time became symbols of something much larger. Those who knew them said the problem wasn't anger, it was fatigue, the kind that seeps in when you've been strong for too long. Still, they carried themselves with grace. No public arguments, no bitterness, even in distance, they protected each other's dignity. It's what respect looks like after love, one insider told People magazine. Then came the whispers grew louder, rumors of separate homes, of trial separations, of different life paths. Reporters circled like hawks, but the couple stayed silent. Silence, however, has its own kind of statement. Fans noticed that Nicole began giving more introspective interviews. When asked about happiness, she said, "Sometimes peace isn't found in noise, it's in stillness." The quote went viral after their split, because everyone suddenly understood what she'd meant. The last public image that year was striking. The couple standing together at an award show, smiling for cameras, but their hands didn't quite touch. The photo went everywhere, dissected frame by frame. "They look happy," some insisted. "They look finished," others whispered. The truth was somewhere in between. They weren't enemies, they were simply tired travelers who had reached the end of the same road. As summer turned to fall, the world prepared for their 19th anniversary. Fans posted tributes, old interviews, love montages. Nicole quietly stayed offline. Keith performed that night in Nashville. Mid-concert, he sang one of his earliest love songs, but changed a single lyric. It was small, subtle, but fans noticed immediately. The line once said, "She's my reason, she's my light." That night he sang, "She was my reason, she was my light." The crowd fell silent. The clip went viral by morning. Some said it was artistic expression, others called it a confession. When journalists asked his team for clarification, they declined to comment, but the internet had already decided something was ending. A week later, he appeared on Australian radio with Amanda Keller. When asked if destiny had brought him and Nicole together, he smiled faintly and said, "I have no idea." A quiet laugh, a shift in posture, eyes looking away. It was barely a sentence, but it was People called it the most honest moment of his career. Days later, he spoke to Ryan Seacrest. "How do you make it all work?" the host asked. Keith hesitated. "It's a job," he said finally. 3 words that echoed through entertainment headlines. Not cruel, not cold, just weird. The clip circulated, dissected on talk shows and fan forums. Viewers replayed his tone, his sighs, his silences. Fox News ran a headline, "Keith Urban's awkward interviews seemingly hinted at Nicole Kidman, marriage trouble." But long before headlines, fans already knew. When love begins to fade, it doesn't always vanish. It just grows quiet, and that quiet had finally settled over them. Autumn arrived with the kind of stillness that makes you notice the sound of your own heart. Nashville turned golden, the trees whispering against the sky, and inside that quiet, a story ended. On September 30, 2025, People magazine confirmed what the world had already suspected. Nicole Kidman had filed for divorce in Nashville after 19 years of marriage. The court papers were simple. No accusations, no cruelty, just the legal phrase irreconcilable differences. Weeks earlier, both had signed a parenting plan, a quiet business-like step that made the news feel less sudden and somehow more final. When reporters called for comment, neither answered. There were no public statements, no interviews, no finger-pointing, just silence, the kind that follows a song's last note before the applause began. Their final appearances now looked like fragments of a goodbye no one had recognized in time. The ACM Awards, where they stood arm in arm but hardly spoke. The FIFA event in Nashville, where cameras caught Keith smiling politely while Nicole adjusted her hair, eyes focused somewhere else. In hindsight, every frame looked heavier. Fans mourned as if they'd lost a piece of themselves. For nearly 2 decades they had believed in this couple, the golden proof that love could survive fame. And now, even their silence felt sacred. Nicole retreated from public life for several weeks. When she finally resurfaced, it wasn't with a statement, but with an image, a photo on Instagram of her 2 daughters in their garden, sunlight spilling through the leaves. The caption was short: "Family always, nothing else." No tags, no hashtags, just warmth and distance in equal measure. Keith meanwhile went back on stage. The first show after the news was in Tampa. He sang like a man remembering how to breathe. Between songs he thanked the crowd for their love and said softly, "Life is in session." Those 3 words would follow him everywhere, quoted, analyzed, tattooed on fan accounts. To many they sounded like closure. To others they were the gentlest admission possible. Yes, it's over. Over the next few weeks he avoided direct references, but spoke of change, acceptance, and grace. "You can't hold back the tide," he told one interviewer. "You just learn how to surf it." There was no bitterness, only calm. His posture, his smile, even his quiet pauses, seemed to carry the weight of someone who had learned to forgive time itself. Nicole too found her rhythm again, filming, traveling, leaning on the friends who had known her long before red carpets. When asked in an interview if she still believed in love, she smiled faintly. "Of course," she said, "but love doesn't always look like what you imagine. Sometimes it's letting go kindly." That single sentence traveled across social media faster than any headline. It wasn't a dig or a confession or a coded message. It was peace. Their daughters became their shared anchor. Sunday Rose began showing an interest in music. Faith Margaret in film. Both parents attended school events separately, but with quiet respect. There were no custody battles, no public feuds, just 2 people determined that their children would remember love, not loss. Weeks turned into months. The tabloids moved on, but fans didn't. They still replayed interviews, searching for clues. They still quoted the lyric Keith had changed. "She was my reason, she was my light." But the truth was simpler than speculation ever allowed. Their marriage hadn't collapsed. It had simply completed its story. Keith kept touring. One night in New York he performed "Blue Ain't Your Color," and paused before the last verse. "We all learn," he told the crowd, "that sometimes love doesn't break. It fades, and fading can be beautiful too." The audience fell silent. No cheers, no screams, just an ocean of people breathing with him. Nicole months later walked the Cannes red carpet alone. Reporters shouted questions. She smiled but said nothing. Her grace, the stillness in her face, told the entire story. She had survived not because she avoided heartbreak, but because she faced it. If there's a truth to draw from their 19 years, it's that love isn't always measured in longevity. It's measured in what it leaves behind: kindness, growth, music, children who laugh freely. Keith's admission was never an exposé. It was acknowledgement that even the brightest light eventually rests. And maybe that's the quiet beauty of it all. 2 people met, healed each other's wounds, raised 2 daughters, and when the time came, let go with grace. They didn't destroy what they built. They simply set it free. Today they walk separate paths. Yet every note Keith sings and every character Nicole portrays carries echoes of that shared lifetime. You can feel it in his voice, see it in her eyes, the invisible tenderness of something once whole. In the end, their story isn't about a breakup. It's about humanity, about the courage to love openly, to fail gently, and to forgive the seasons that change without our permission. The world may call it an ending. They would probably call it life continuing, quietly as it should, because sometimes the most honest confessions are not shouted, but whispered through the pauses between words. And sometimes the greatest love stories end not with drama but with understanding. When Keith said life is in session, perhaps he meant that love never truly disappears. It just changes classroom.